So for the first one, exercise color layout. This is going to continue working with the different color schemes, in particular just using InDesign to lay out something with the color scheme. Now last time you had to visually create a color scheme. So if I said make something that's monochromatic, you had to go in and pick your colors that were all monochromatic. If I said make something that was complementary, you had to have your color wheel open and be looking for complementary type colors. For this one, InDesign, and actually it's in Photoshop and Illustrator too, has a little extra program. It's called Cooler. It's an extension. It's like a program within the program that allows you to easily pick different color swatches. And you're going to recolorize these black swatches, anything that's black, in the color scheme that I've listed out here. So this one needs to be monochromatic. This one would be complementary, triad, so on and so forth. So let's jump in and see what we can do with it. To open up the extension Cooler, go to Window. First of all, notice I said View Extensions Cooler. This is a total mistake. I've written it on the board. Go to Window, Extensions, there's Cooler. What Cooler is, this is a little program that allows you to quickly and easily find and create color schemes. First of all, you can select the rule that you want to work in. Notice there's my analogous, monochromatic, triads, different types of rules. So if I chose analogous colors, remember analogous, they're all close together. I've got my base color. In this case, it's set to that kind of greenish yellow. If I click and drag, notice that they all stay together. So no matter where I move them, all of my little color swatches are going to stay aligned with each other. And it's going to give me 5 different swatches to pull from. Even if I choose one of these, it will evenly spread them out and be able to change them. This is a lot quicker, a lot easier in choosing a color scheme than having to kind of guess at what would work really well. You can also change your brightness or darkness of each one. You can pull them in. So if you need one of them to be a lot lighter, you can do that, but they'll all pretty much stay within the same thing. Monochromatic. So in this case, it's all going to stay within one thing. You can click on the individual ones and adjust the lightness and darkness of each one. But it's a great, simple, easy way of getting 5 color swatches that stay within a color scheme. All cool? Once you've got a color scheme created, these 5 different swatches, let's see, y'all give me a color. What do you want this first monochromatic to be? Yellow. Let's go for a yellow type color scheme. So I'm going to pull this over to the yellow. I'm adjusting it. Remember, you want to have at least 2 lighter, 2 darker, and 1 kind of in the middle. Let's see. Let's get one that's really light. There we go. So now I've got a good light color, dark colors, middle tones. With my 5 colors selected, at the very bottom right side, this middle button, this will add the colors to your swatches palette. Clicking it once, looks like nothing happened. I'm going to open my swatches. And now you can see at the very bottom, here's the 5 colors that we created. So instantly I can add these swatches and be able to use them within my design. So what we're going to do is, each one of these needs to be recolored to match the color scheme that we have. Anything that's black can be changed, so you don't really have to change the white areas for this one. You've got a large kind of square object, you've got a tall rectangle, smaller rectangles. The one that's behind this one is one solid color. So when you change it, both of those are going to change up as well. And also you can change the color of your text. All you got to do is simply select it and then choose the colors that you want to work with that you just created. Very, very simple, very easy. This isn't meant to be too difficult. Choose your type and change up the type color as well. It's just that simple to create a layout that sticks within a color scheme. So if you're designing something and you have a color scheme, lay it all out. Make sure it looks good in black and white. Then you start adding the color and you can easily change something out. You're using the same layout, but you're changing up the color scheme, and you'll see how quickly you can change this one out. So let's try a complementary color scheme. Choose complementary. So wherever I move it, it's going to change up those 2. Let's try blue and orange. That's pretty cool. I've got my 5 colors set. Choose Add the Theme to the Swatches. And at the bottom of my swatches palette, I've got my 5 colors ready to use. Simply select the area you want to place it in. There's really no hard and fast rules for what color should go where. Choose my type tool and change the color of it. Just that simple. Any questions on this one? Cool. Very, very easy. This will come in handy for when you have your template and you need to choose the colors you want to work within your template. Choose a color scheme and use those colors and stick with it as well. And that's why we're able to do this. For the second exercise, this will help you recolorize the images that we're working in. So I'm going to close this one out. Won't save it. When you are finished, save the InDesign file and you're going to upload the InDesign file to Moodle. The second one, I'll unzip the flower zip file, flower flyer. That is a tongue twister. We'll open this one up. You're going to take this design, we won't need cooler, and you're going to recolorize each one of these images to be a specific color to fit a color scheme. In this case, we need to get rid of the colors that we're working with. If you'll notice in the zip file, there's also a links folder. These are all the images that are linking to the file that you're working with. So the 3 different flowers. This will be important in just a second. So let's take this first one, and you can follow along in the handout that I gave you. The 3 different methods require you to work in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is click on the image. Notice when you hover over an image, you've got a little button dooley in the center of it. Click on that. So I've got my image selected. Hold down the Control key and click, and then go to Edit with Photoshop. This is going to open your image into Photoshop. Open Photoshop by itself, and this is the image that we want to get rid of. In our case, we want to turn this nice red image into a cool blue image. You're going to need some palettes open for this first one. First of all, make sure your adjustment palette is open, your layers palette, and also the properties palette will pop open when necessary. So here's what we're going to do. The first type of adjustment we're going to use is called a gradient adjustment. And this is in the adjustments palette. It's this one right here. When I click on it, check out my layers palette. I've got my background, which is my image, and I've got an adjustment layer inside of my layers palette now. What this adjustment is doing, it's looking at all the dark pixels and it's turning it, in this case, to black, and all the lighter pixels into white. And this is where the properties palette comes in. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead. Let's see what happens when we change it. I'm going to click on this gradient. This will pick up my gradient editor. If I chose another color, let's try this one. Now check out what's happening. All my darker pixels are turning red and my lighter pixels are turning green. This is what gradient map allows you to do. It's mapping out the different things. So in this case, purple to orange. You can do some really cool stuff. Check out what this one's doing. The darker areas are turning blue, my mid-tones are yellow, and then my lighter tones are blue again. And you can play around and get some really funky type of results depending on the type of gradient that you're working with. For what we want, we just want it to have 3 different colors. So I'm going to add an extra color swatch to the center. Clicking, so now I've got 1, 2, 3. In my instructions, I want the first one to be a dark blue. So I'm going to double click on this swatch and then choose a dark blue. We'll say OK to that. My middle tone will be a light blue. Choose your hue, choose a lighter blue. There we go. And you can see how it will change up based on whatever color that you pick. And we'll say OK. And our last one will be kept white. You can move these around, and you can see how it will change up the, be careful not to click on it, how it will change up the lightness and darkness of my, my image that I'm working on. Have I lost everybody? Real simple, real cool. Opening it up, changing your gradient, we'll say OK. And this is within the properties palette that I'm working with. Now I need to be able to save this document. here's what I want you to do to pay attention to. If I was to just save this document now, File and Save, it's going to ask me to either save it as a TIFF or as a Photoshop document. Now my original, if you'll look at it, is a JPEG. I need it to be a JPEG. Watch what happens if I choose JPEG as an example. It's giving me a little bit of an error. Why do you think it's giving me this error? Because the layers. A JPEG will not save all the layers that we have. In our case, the little gradient map that we added, that's an extra layer. Photoshop will. So I'm going to hit cancel. What I need to do is I need to flatten all of the layers into one layer. Here's how to do that. At the very top right hand side of your layers palette, click on it and choose flatten image. Now it's all one solid layer. Very simple, very easy. Now if I go to save, it won't even give me a pop-up. It'll just go ahead and save my image, and you can see it's saved as the blue. If I close it out and go back into InDesign, automatically it will update the image that I'm working with. Cool? So that's the first method on how to do it, using a gradient map to change up the colors that you're working with. For the second image, we're going to use Photoshop again to select this one. Hold down Control, click on it, edit with Photoshop. Alright, so I want to take this image and turn it into kind of a red type layer. To do this, we're going to use a blending mode. First of all, I'm going to make a new layer on top of my background that's solid red. And we're going to use what's called a fill layer. Go to Layer, New Fill Layer, and we're going to fill it with a solid color. The thing about this one is, we'll just keep it the name of it. It's going to fill in whatever color that I pick. In this case, I can pick red, change up to anything. We'll keep it at this color red, and say OK. So this is a solid color filled in on top of this one. If you ever need to change it, simply double-click the little thumbnail, and that will bring up your color picker, and you can change it as well. Instead of gradient mapping this one, we're going to change the blending mode that we're working on. Remember, the blending mode allows you to change up how the pixels on one layer interact with the other pixels below it. And the mode we're going to use is from normal to hue. So see how that changed that one up. It's looking at just the colors, the hue of the background layer, and changing it to the hue of, in this case, red. The reason why you have shades of gray in there as well is because those are desaturated. There's no color within those particular areas. You can play around with your blending modes and get some different type of looks. If I chose color, that's also going to now pick up my saturation as well. Depending on what you get, multiply usually picks up the lighter areas. Screen will get you those darker areas. You can get some really cool type of effects, depending on what you want. In our case, we just want to keep it at hue. So we want to have those particular areas. Same as the last one, you need to make sure it's just one layer and saved as a JPEG, so we're going to flatten it. Flatten image, and then we'll save it and close it out. When I go back, now you can see it easily changes it up from this one. Here's the tricky one. This one's going to be a lot of fun. We need to change this one to be a two-toned type of image. First thing I'm going to do is bring it up into Photoshop. Let's see, edit with Photoshop. In this case, we're not going to let Photoshop change the color. I'm going to show you how to use InDesign to change a color. In Photoshop, we're going to change it from a JPEG with full color by going to Mode to a grayscaled type image. This is going to tell the computer to get rid of all the color values, all the color numbers, and to just use shades of gray. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to do that? We'll say OK. Solid shades of gray. However, for this one, we need to save it as a TIFF file. A JPEG will not save shades of gray. It will still save RGB values. That's not what we want. So File, Save As, and this one it does need to be saved as, in this case we'll call it Flower 3, change your format to a TIFF. You'll see why in just a second. We'll hit Save. It'll ask you for more information. We'll just say OK to that. Now when I close it out and I go back into here, it didn't change my color. Why didn't it change?
The original file.
Okay, the original file. Remember, I saved another file. So I actually need to get rid of this picture. This is still the JPEG. I'll delete it away. I still got my frame in here. Now I need to load up my TIFF. The first thing I'm going to do, check this out. I'm going to change the color of my my box that I'm working with. In our case, we want the, I think I'll change it to magenta. Watch what happens when I drop in my TIFF that I created. There's my Flower 3 TIFF. It's all black and white. When I say open, if you need to scale something down at the very top, one of these two will automatically adjust it and fit it. My image was black and white. Where's my light pixels? What color are they? Magenta. Why are they magenta? Because my box color is magenta. This is kind of the essence of whatever you want it to be. If you've just got your box selected, it'll be, the lighter colors will be whatever color that you have chosen. In my case, red, green, or whatever. To change the darker pixels, we need to select the image. And this is when you click on the little round doily in the center. See, my fill color is set to black. Now if I change that color to magenta or red or something else, it'll change it into those tones. Having a grayscale TIFF allows you to give two-toned images to whatever that you're printing in InDesign, and that's how you change it. Do I need to show you all that again? So to change the lighter colors, what do I need to change? My image or my box? The box. To change the darker colors, make sure you've got the picture selected, and that'll change that up as well. Any questions on that one? Real simple, real easy. Those are 3 different methods you can use to change the color of the images that you're working with. Use those methods once you start laying out these different files in your own template that you're laying out as well. Another thing, so next class period is when this is due. Remember, we're going to print these off and cut them out. So every little element that you have on your design needs to be printed off separately, cut out, and glued to your paper. To do this, I'm just going to make another image. Let me show you how we'll do this. Excuse me, not another image, another piece of paper. In my case, I've got a background that's going to be blue. All my other stuff, I'm just going to drag it onto my page. And so this would be printed off and cut out. This would also be printed and cut. This would be 2 different things. So I've got my picture on one, and I'll have a background that I'm going to cut off. I'm going to cut both of these out and paste it onto it as well. Does this make sense? If you look at the example, and I'll have them up here, you can pull up. Everything that's in the background was cut out. So this was one solid piece. It's actually 2 different pieces. Cut out, pasted on top of it. All the pictures, cut out, pasted on top of something for a border. This is what I want you to do for your design as well. Not everything is just going to be printed off on one piece of paper. But I'll do it. All cool? Very good. Sorry I have to overstate that, but I want y'all to get it right once you get it. So when we print it, my background, I'll have everything moved out of the way as well. We'll move that. Oh, didn't get everything. My background would be printed on one piece of paper, cut out and placed. All my other little elements will be printed on another piece of paper, cut out and glued to the document that I'm working on. Any questions on that for the project? I'm going to give you one more thing to think about. Remember when you set up your document, I asked you to give it an 1/8 of an inch bleed edge. So if I showed my guides, remember the bleed is that little bit extra that goes beyond your document border. So if you do have a background color, make sure you pull that background to the bleed edge so that we'll overprint, and you'll cut that off as well. So you want the background at least to be slightly larger than is necessary. All cool? For today, once you finish up your exercises, both of them are to be uploaded to Moodle. Start work on your designs, doing research for how you want to look and also the information that you want inside of it. turn your computer back over to y'all and let y'all get started.
The extract tool, yeah, I have